are at Rayner on Leadership podcast with Sam Rayner, with Thom Rayner. And we just love to talk about things about the local church. And this was one that is becoming more and more asked. Should I plan to retire from my church? And we're going to respond in the area of 5 questions. Probably best for me just to talk to the old people and Sam just sit on the sideline and laugh at us, or maybe Sam can contribute as well. Hey, before we get into this, this is some incredible news, incredible resource, a Spanish Bible, a new Bible. It's called the NTV Economic Bible Collection. It's accurate, it's powerful, and it's in Spanish, and it delivers the message of the original text into clear contemporary Spanish. So if you have a Spanish-speaking church or Spanish-speaking service, boy, this is a great Bible for you. It's new, it's accurate, it's powerful. The NTV Economic Bible Collection will strengthen your work and your commitment to your community. And these editions have been designed specifically to serve churches, other missions and Christian organizations, but churches as well. All right, Sam, let's talk about not only the graying of the church, but the graying of pastors in those churches. You've been looking at that data for some time, and it's like you tell us these things a few years ago, and all of a sudden say, "Oh, Sam mentioned that 5-6 years ago." I can think of numerous examples of that, like attendance frequency, megachurch decline, those types of things. This is another one that you've been able to see just from the demographics.
Yeah, and it's demographics change slowly until they don't. And what I mean by that is
a great comment.
Yeah,
demographics change slowly until. Hey, I was not getting old till I was.
Yeah, exactly. It's everything was happening slowly until it sped up. So it's just the way change works. Yeah, generally demographics you can see coming. And you can see these trends coming, but people don't pay attention until it gets to a certain point.
Exactly.
You saw it coming years ago. You can look back at the trends and see the trends, but we're just now paying attention because it got to a certain point to where we felt like it was an issue. And the graying of the pastorate, pastors getting older, has been something we've been tracking, but since before I was born. I mean, this goes back to the 1970s.
Wait a minute, you've been tracking it since before you were born?
Yeah, believe it or not, we have been tracking. I guess that implies me. The other researchers that were there before me have been tracking this, and then I started paying attention. I started paying attention when I got older. The average age of a pastor in the 70s was like 35, 40 years old. And now we're seeing the average age of a pastor being right around 60. And, a lot of it, you could say 58, 59, 61. You see these different numbers. It's right around 60. And the trend now, the reason people are paying attention now is because the average pastor's almost right at retirement age.
Exactly.
And that's why
the standard retirement age, if you will.
Correct. I mean, I'm not saying you have to retire at 65, but that's when most people kind of think about it. All right, so you're 5 years removed from some sort of retirement. Now everyone's paying attention. When the average age of a pastor was 50, well, okay, we're getting a little older, but it's not a big deal. Even though that trend was coming, and you could see where it was going, and we're there now. We are there now, and it is a major problem in the church. It's not that older pastors are the problem. A lot of times, older pastors are great for their churches. It's that there's not enough young people coming in to replace them. That's the issue.
Exactly. And when we talk about the older pastors, we're primarily talking about the baby boomers. We're talking about those born between 1946 and 1964. I'm an example of someone right in the middle of that generation in 1955. And so I am 68 years old. So you can get the idea of the ages of these pastors. So older Gen X, edging on up in there, younger builders, really not there, but still there are a few in there, but it's primarily a baby boom phenomenon. If you followed the baby boom, which I have been fascinated with my generation, not always excited about my generation or affirming of my generation, but I have been fascinated by it. It's what one researcher called the pig and the python. And the metaphor is a python swallows a pig, and you can pretty well see where it's going down its digestive system as it does. In terms of a big lump going through the population. The boomers have been the pig and the python. I understand that there have been some other large generations. The millennials are pretty large, but this was the one that I think got the attention of researchers and demographers first, the baby boomer generation.
No, no doubt. And actually, millennials are now larger than baby boomers.
Yep, exactly.
But the baby boomer group was that first large swell of a generation to go through the populace of the United States. And it still is, that generation still a huge influence on things like the aging of the pastorate. Unfortunately, yes, we have not trained up enough younger pastors to be another swell. We don't have another swell behind them in the pastorate.
So we're about to see a big gap in the number of vacancies in churches or prolonged staying of older pastors in churches. One of the two. Let's get to the very obvious question. We're asking the question, should I plan to retire from my church? 5 questions. Well, the first question is obvious. What do you sense God is telling you? Now, we know there's some subjectivity to discerning the call of God. We know that you cannot open a page in the Bible and says you are to retire at age 66 or 67. We know that. But this has to be a prayerful decision, first of all.
Yeah, I think so. And this question is, should I retire from my church or not? It's a different question for me at 43 than it is for, say, the pastor who's 67. Not to say that pastor who's in his late 60s can't transition to another church. Certainly that's possible. It's just less likely. So a lot of this is age related, which another thing of this, Dad, is we're seeing the average tenure of a pastor get longer. And everyone's kind of like, hey, things are getting better. And I'm like, no, actually they're worse.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, let's sit down and look at the statistics really mean. Yes, it's great that pastors are staying longer at their churches, but the reason they're staying longer at their churches is because they're older and they don't want to go anywhere else. They want to retire there. So I actually think the age, the time of the average time a pastor spends at a church is going to continue to get longer and longer. But that's only because we have a lot of 60-something pastors who are saying, God is telling me I'm going to stay here. Like this, I'm of a certain age. It just makes sense that I stay at this church. And frankly, I think that's going to be beneficial to a lot of churches, especially if you can work them through a revitalization effort. I think that we can see a lot of good come of this. But yeah, that first question is a very simple question. And it's hard to argue it. When people say, well, God told me, I'm like, well, okay, well, I'm not God. So I can't argue with you on that.
Exactly. Another just basic question. How much joy do you have in your current church? Again, you don't determine your call based upon just the experiential issues like joy, but that should tell you something. It's going to be tough to get up in the morning if you don't have joy in where you are right now. It's going to be tough to serve. And so one of the questions you ask is, how much joy do you have in your current church? One of the reasons I find it hard to stop on anything, but just stop doing ministry vocationally. Now it's Church Answers. Before that, it was Lifeway. Before that, it was Southern Seminary Dean. Before that, it was pastorates. One of the reasons I have trouble stopping is because I found joy in almost everything that I've done. And, there's a selfish motive, I guess, of mine. I like the joy. And until I find another joy, I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do. So that's one of the 5 questions we ask them.
Yeah. And yes. And let's, the title of the podcast is, should I plan to retire from my church? Not will I? I mean, sometimes God may just say, go. Like, like, wow, that's a shock. I was not expecting that. I'm planning to retire from West Bradenton. I have no ambitions for anything else. I'm thrilled about staying here. I have great joy in my church. And sure, you can always, anyone can always go to a larger church. You can always work your way up the church ladder. And sometimes that's what people need to do. I don't think that everyone's that has done it should have done it, but sometimes that's what God calls people to do. But I just don't have any interest in that. I love my church. I have great joy in my church. Now, could God call me somewhere in 5 years? Well, yeah, but I'm not planning on it. So let's understand the question here. Should I plan to retire from my church? I think for a lot of us who are in the pastorate, whatever your age is, whether you're in your early to mid 40s like me, or whether you're in your 60s like others, I think you probably should plan to retire from your church unless there's an extenuating circumstance.
And the question implies when and what's the process as well, part of the planning process. So we'll get to that.
Yep.
This third one is one that is maybe not considered that much, but I think it's important. How many members have hinted about your need to retire? Now that's a telling thing. Not only are they talking to you about age, but they might be talking to you about effectiveness as well. And you know I'm in a season of mourning right now. My football coach has retired. At age 72, Nick Saban is no longer the coach of Alabama. I'm going to have to get used to saying DeBoer. It's just not the typical name for an Alabama coach, and I'm sure I'm going to love him. But here's what he said. I'm not making Nick Saban analogous to a pastor, okay? Far from it. I'm just saying, here's what he said. He said, I could no longer look a recruit in the face and say, I'm going to be here for 4 years. Too many people were asking the retirement question. So the very fact that the question was being asked was a precipitating factor in his retirement. Now, if a lot of people are asking you, the same if they start asking you at your church, are you going to retire anytime soon? I wouldn't know what to think.
Yeah, I don't quite know. I'd have to ask them, what do you mean by that?
Yes.
But certainly if you're of age and people are initiating that conversation with you, you need to ask yourself why. It could be harmless. It could just be they're curious. They don't really care one way or the other, or there could be something more to that. And you would just need to know that there. And yeah, if people are hinting at things, it's good to ask the question of yourself, of God, and of your church. It could be that you are getting close to that time.
Yep. It's not a fun question to ask if they're asking it before you're asking it. This next one is tricky. What is your financial condition? Some may say, well, you just need to trust God regardless of your financial condition. Well, yes, but you need to use some type of wisdom as well. And one of the questions that you might ask is, what is going to happen to me financially when I retire? What do I have now? Do I have that 403B, or in some cases a 401k, that deferred savings plan? Am I going to get a Social Security payment? Do I have any other investments? And we could go down a list of those. And the purpose here is not to bore people with something that shouldn't be that boring, which is their finances, but you need to ask the question, how are you going to support yourself when you retire? Whether you say yes or no, you need to be asking is, what is my financial condition? We know that a lot of pastors who are at or near retirement age don't have a clue how they're going to financially move forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of things here. First, I'll say this to the person that says just trust God. And I mean that as somebody who's saying it a bit flippantly or naively.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, do you ever set an alarm clock? Just trust God. He'll wake you up. Just trust God. I mean, it's like, okay, we need to exercise wisdom too. Of course we trust God, of course. But if we need to get up early for a flight, we're going to set an alarm clock to make sure. We're going to make sure that we have good plans for our finances. And if you are in such a financial shape to where you really do need to work a couple more years or more, then you need a good plan there. It may be at your church, which would be great, or it may not be. But either way, you need to have a pretty good grasp. If you're getting close to retirement age and you're trying to figure out where you should retire from and when, you do need to make sure that you sit down and properly understand your finances. Dad, with pastors, there's so many issues here. Social Security exemption, the way that 403Bs work with retirement. Nonprofits have 403Bs, not 401Ks. And you just really need to make sure you understand. And the only way to do that is sit down with a professional and work through it. Don't assume anything here at all.
It's so vitally important to get someone to tell you what the picture is as you are about to depart, because it's not just about you. You may have adult children that will feel a burden for you. You may have a spouse that is worried about it. You may have friends and other family members who think that they have to take care of you. So these types of issues don't affect just the one who is asking the financial questions. These type of issues affect potentially a lot of people. So yeah, what is your financial condition? I would refer to your brother's ministry and what's going on with him, and just go to Christian Financial
Christian
Solutions,
Money
Christian
Solutions.
Money Solutions. I'm sorry, ChristianMoneySolutions.com. He's got a lot of information there. We'll put that in the show notes. Thank you for remembering what your brother's company's name is.
I'll help him
Christian.
out every now and then. Yeah, it's Christian Money
Yes.
Solutions. His stuff's so good. He's got this new thing with the 8 money milestones.
Oh,
And
it's incredible.
I hope he doesn't listen to this episode to hear us talking about it, but it's actually really
He
good.
won't. I
Yeah,
promise he won't.
ChristianMoneySolutions.com. Yeah,
He listens to us as much as we listen to him.
that's a good point. That's a good point.
But your mother listens to all of them. By the way, I remember one night your mom said, "I'm going to have to get up at such and such time." And I said, "You're going to set the alarm?" She said, "No, I don't think so. I'll ignore it anyway." She has to get up at
That's mom. That's mom.
free spirit that she is. And related to this is the fifth and final question: what would you do after retirement? And we've been doing a lot of things at Church Answers. We've to help in this area. We've created Interim Pastor University, so you can be certified as interim pastor, kind of get to the head of the classes as interim pastorate opportunities open. That's something that you can do. We also have Revitalize certification. You can help churches revitalize. There are different possibilities. I check out one place to check. I know we're not the only one, but one place to check, you should go to churchanswers.com and look at the certifications, because we have a number of people who've been telling us that certification has become a financial and ministry lifeline for me in retirement. So, those are the type things you could be checking on right away. And we know this. There are going to be more and more churches without pastors. There are going to be more and more churches that will need circuit rider pastors. I'm referring to the types that have to serve more than one church. There are going to be more co-vocational pastors, more bivocational pastors. Get ready for this next era, because it's changing. We just did a webinar today on the day we recorded this, Sam, and we talked about that reality. We talked about why Church Answers University is a good training ground for those who are going to be bivocational or whatever. But the point is, there are opportunities out there, even within vocational ministry, after you retire.
Yeah, when I do a lot of coaching for these certifications, that's a lot. Not everyone that goes through the certification, says this, but a lot of them do. They are, late 50s, 60s, some of them in their 70s. And their whole posture is, I want to get certified for consulting. I want to get certified for being an interim pastor. I want to get certified for revitalization. And it is income for them. It's not a full-time job. In fact, a lot of them are like, I don't want another full-time job, but this is what I want to do in retirement. And this is great supplemental income for my retirement. And they use the certification not only just to do good for the church, but it also helps pay the bills as well. So I would just encourage our listeners to go check out those certifications. It's great sidecar income or side gig income, whatever term you want to use there. And especially if you're in retirement or planning for retirement, a couple of years, this would be a great thing to go get, because it can set you up to have some income after you retire.
There might be a gap. There might be a financial gap, and this can cover the financial gap. These are 5 questions. The first one, you're going to have to discern between you and God. What is God telling you? The second one is just do I find joy in this? But the third one begins to be outside voices speaking in. How many members have hinted about your need to retire? That is an issue. And then these other 2, you can find out objectively what you have right now and what you can do. What is your financial condition, and what would you do after retirement? Not an exhaustive list, but at least a beginning point for many of these who are talking about the possibility or planning for retirement to move forward. Hey, Sam, we got not a new sponsor, but they're back in this form. I absolutely love these folks. Tell us about Upward.
Yeah, Upward is one of the great ministries that does recreation ministry so well. And what I love about what they do is they help bridge your church into the community. We did an interview with them on my other podcast, est.church. And they told us that, generally speaking, when you do an Upward program, you're going to get 50% of your church and of the participants, 50% your church and 50% people in the community. Is there not a better opportunity? This is huge. And you may say, well, do we have the people to do it? Yeah, they can work with churches of all sizes. If you've got a gym or you've just got a field or a parking lot, they can help you out. So when you partner with Upward Sports, they'll customize a player package for you. They'll give you everything that you need. They will work with you in your specific context. They do this better than anybody else. And here's the kicker. Upward is excited to offer a 2024 sports startup grant of $500. So not only are they sponsoring this show so you can listen for free, they are offering you a $500 grant. So head over to upward.org/church answers, upward.org/church answers, schedule your call, and they can tell you how you can get this $500 sports grant to get you started in offering a league. That is incredibly generous of them, not only to sponsor this episode, but also to offer that grant. So it can be found at upward.org/church answers.
And it's in the show notes if you didn't get it all.
There you go. And hey, we're out of time, everyone. So thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe in your podcasting app. If you're on the YouTubers, good to see you. Give us a thumbs up. That would really help the algorithms because we want good stuff. We want good Christian stuff on the YouTubers. So we hope that we'll see you on the next episode.